One of our points of discussion here is geopolitics, trade. Trump feeds into the US election, which I've called the goat rodeo. Goat rodeo has a very specific definition in Southern America, and we might explore that at some stage. The idea of local versus global, local over global, and all of that sort of thing. One of the things I've said to the network previously, and we will delve into a little bit of America because it is the world's biggest and nastiest economy, and you and I have spent a fair period of time there, is that put Trump over here for a moment and understand that the US Congress, being all those people on Capitol Hill, they basically have the same view of particularly China as the president. Now, whether the president conducts himself appropriately, that's a discussion I'll let you comment on. And what we're seeing around the world right now, post coronavirus, COVID, whatever we want to call it, is that the Europeans are saying, no, we don't like your behaviour. We're getting pushback out of Australia. So we're even getting pushback out of the smaller North Asian countries. We're getting Vietnam, Malaysia, certainly the Koreans and the Japanese. So what are your thoughts on trade, Trump, global versus local and local versus global?
Yeah, great questions. So as an investment person, I step back. It's not about who wins, who I want to win or lose, who my biases are. That's indifferent, doesn't matter. It is basically looking at this election coming up in the next, 6 to 8 weeks, and who do you think is more likely to win? And my honest answer is, and I think I sent you and Robin a note, was it last week or a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, the JP's note, which managed to feature on Fox News, that night.
Yeah. And I think it's really a tight race. And Trump is probably as well placed as he ever was, even in the last election in 2016, to pull this off. His base seems to be holding strong. These are volatile conditions. So I think calling this I just don't know. I really don't know who's going to win. I get the question asked, like, who do you think will win? And I say, my honest answer is, I do not know. But whatever you do not underestimate from the previous election that Trump's got a more than an even fighting chance. That's the first thing. The second thing is I get asked is, what do you think the markets will do if it's a Biden victory or a Trump victory? And again, the question is, well, let's wait and see. I don't think you can call that. You saw that when we had the election when Hillary was winning, markets rallied, then she was losing, and it was like, they didn't know who was going to win. The markets tanked, then Trump was winning well, then the markets went up. And then if you remember, all the so-called economists said, Trump's being president, he's going to tank the economy, it's terrible, sell your stocks. Well, he put in incredible supply-side reforms for corporate taxes, and the stock market went through the roof. And again, this is not me saying pro-Trump or pro-Biden. All I'm saying is that is still to play out, and there will be an impact, but I don't think anyone can give that answer other than Trump has a pretty good fighting chance, and this election is going to be just as weird and wacky as the one 4 years ago. On the geopolitics, there is no one in the world today, in any government, that I can see out there fighting for trade. That's a bit scary. So Australia was built on a pretty healthy way to trade around the world. And as you can see with the geopolitical tensions rising, albeit with some pretty interesting behavior by China, right, which is a real concern. When I say interesting as in bad, no one is fighting for trade. And this leads to my idea that we've discussed a bit. Well, it's not my idea, it's ideas that I've picked up. And that is that as we're going into this post-COVID world, we're seeing the development of localism over globalism. In fact, localism is so bad at the moment and good. localism is good when it's done well. It's about looking after your community, having your community response on your base, which is fantastic. When it's bad, it's like, oh, we're New South Welshmen. Thank God we're not Queenslanders or Victorians. Or the Queenslanders going, well, we don't want anyone south of the border. I don't know what the Victorians are fighting for. They're just trying to get out of this. Or South Australians, we're not any one of you. Thank God, right? We're shutting everything down. So localism is good when it helps the community. It's bad when we're even fighting across the Federation, or we're not talking about immigration, or we're not talking about trade. And managing this construct over the next couple of years will be a big issue. We should never forget Australia's done really well from global trade. It's a great trading nation. It is a small island nation, and this will have major ramifications if everyone becomes too insular.
Yeah, I think I do fear that some of the behaviours that we see coming out of, well, the United States, I was going to say North America, won't include the Canadians in this, but, you know, the United States is 50 countries under one flag, and we're starting to get that sort of behaviour around this coronavirus thing that, you know, Queensland thinks it's its own country. Who knows what WA is doing? We'll just send them a bill for all the development since Federation. But
yeah, exactly.
You know, poor old Victoria. They've got involved in, you know, security guards who drive moonlight as Uber drivers and what have you. But yeah, I do think the challenge globally is people want to be more insular. Governments want to be more insular because it's populist. And that will be detrimental to global markets. I would make a point that 4 years ago, I saw Trump on his last day as a citizen, and I stood in a bar in Elm Street, Dallas, nightmare on Elm Street, and with some guys out of Asia who were very concerned if Trump won, because equity markets would collapse. And indeed, Trump did win, and we were there as Wolf Blitzer was, you know, vomiting into his coffee. And Fox was, you know, their eyes were rolling round and they were foaming at the mouth and what have you. And the next morning we got up and the bell rang in New York, and markets took off. So I don't think there's no predictor. I think there's a chance of volatility, but it's the Zimmer frame Olympics that they're running over there. 300 million people, and they found two blokes with Zimmer frames. I would have thought they could do it probably a bit better than that, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the choices aren't exactly enticing, but it's their democracy and they have to figure it out. The one thing I will say, what does it mean? I always bring it back. What does it mean for us managing money as an allocator? And that is looking at the trade situation. You know, trade is veins, it's blood flow throughout the global economy. I hope it doesn't seize up. In that world, if trade does seize up, some of these tech companies that have tax arbitrages and run across the various nations who are highly valued could be in a bit of trouble. And local industrialization or local sort of old economy or things coming back could do well. That has broader ramifications for property and infrastructure. And so this hasn't played out yet, but we're thinking about all these issues. And I get back to the very boring argument. I want to sort of invest in areas that have been left behind since March.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit about that later.
Yeah, no, we will.